Crime Curious is a true crime podcast that takes an in-depth look into real cases through the lens of a trained investigator and former prosecutor turned judge.
If you are sensitive to expletives, anatomical descriptions, and accurate descriptions of crime scenes, this podcast may not be suitable for you.
Have you or someone you love been a victim of a crime that's still unsolved? Crime Curious has teamed up with one of the top private investigation services in the Indiana and surrounding area. If you have listened to us long enough, you know that we do not seek out services or products that are meaningless to us or hold no real value. So you can trust us when we say that Corbett Investigations comes with decades of experience you won't find anyplace else. Corbett Investigations is run by a former homicide commander of one of the country's most successful homicide units, has put over 400 people in prison for homicide, handled over 1,100 death investigations, and solved 33 cold case murders. To be real with you, Mr. Corbett had a really difficult time telling us what we should highlight in this segment because he does not like to sound like he's bragging. Solving crimes has been his life's passion, and he has never done it for the accolades or recognition. He has a whole team behind his services that help him be so successful, as they specialize in things like blood stain analysis, ballistics, crime scene reconstruction, and forensic pathology, just to name a few. When you contact Corbett Investigations, you talk directly with Tim Corbett. He is hands-on with every case and can travel anywhere that's needed to get the job done. Corbett Investigations prides itself on honesty, truth, feet to the ground, real investigation work, and the strength to stand up to whatever is in the way of solving the crime. Corbett Investigations specializes in complex homicide cases, sex offenses, and criminal investigations that are old and new. Tim and his team have a reputation for finding witnesses and information that others could not. Although we hope none of our listeners ever need private investigation services, if you do, we recommend contacting Corbett Investigations and mention this segment on Crime Curious for a free consultation. Contact Tim Corbett today at 574-229-8115. You can also check them out on Facebook at Corbett Investigative Services, Inc. Thanks for listening, and now on to the show. Welcome to Crime Curious. I'm Charnell.
I'm Megan.
And we're shaking our good luck degree. We're going to need it for this conclusion to our two-parter.
Yeah, this is part 2 of the tragic death of Shad Thyrion. Mm-hmm. And the perpetrator here is Taylor Shabisnes. We know it's her.
And if you have not listened to part 1, just go back one episode.
Otherwise, you won't necessarily be lost, but you're going to miss all of the crazy graphic details of this person.
Yes.
And I use that term loosely.
I know. I actually don't. I think that it is an insult to all of us actual humans that we are calling this woman a human, because she clearly isn't. And I don't want to insult the aliens either, because she's not an alien. They're not doing this shit. She's some sort of demon from the depths of hell that haven't been explored yet. Not even by Hitler.
This is one of these cases, as you're reading through this, that you just have to think about, is there premeditation? Was this in the heat of some type of a drug-induced, drug-fueled rage?
I'm sorry, but
was it a sexual event that went wrong?
The shit she does afterwards and the way that she leaves this dismembered body for that poor victim's mother to find, I think she was, I do believe that she thought she was going to get caught, that she had been there long enough that you can only go so long without somebody coming down there running into the parents or family, right? Mm-hmm. That I think she finally realized and was panicking and figuring out how to get rid of them, which again goes to malice and intent. Exactly.
Why didn't
she's not high anymore.
Wait, why wouldn't you go upstairs if you accidentally strangled somebody during a sexual escapade while you were both high?
After you're not high anymore, right?
Well, you wake up from whatever type of a daze that you were in or a passing out and go, oh my God, and call 911. Mm-hmm. Yes, you're probably going to go to jail.
Right. Yes, absolutely. But at least your defense of being high could stick a lot easier.
Well, and you didn't fucking dismember and sexually assault someone.
Yeah. Ugh, yeah.
All right. We're going to go to the trial and incarceration.
Okay.
Shabusiness's attorney, Quinn Jolly.
I'm sorry, Quinn Jolly?
You got it.
Quinn Jolly. All right.
Submitted a not guilty by reason of insanity plea on September 1.
Figured that was coming.
Defense attorneys have not yet offered any argument or evidence about the specifics of her insanity plea during the guilt phase of the trial. In preliminary hearings, attorneys and doctors pointed to a pattern of drug use that included methamphetamine. They're going to use that as the insanity basis. Now,
you know, actual mentally insane people, they're not addicts. Okay, those are two different things, guys. No. Two different mental illnesses. I just needed to stick up for all of the actual people who have mental disturbances that can be diagnosed as insane.
Because it's very hard to read through a case like this where there's clearly voluntary intoxication by substances and then something terrible happens. But you compare this to all of the people you know who have legitimate DSM-5 diagnoses for substance abuse, who don't do this, who would never do this, who are really hurting themselves and hurting their families, and they need help.
Do not want to hurt anybody else. Yep.
So in court documents filed after her arrest, Shabusiness's attorney said she first recalled receiving mental health treatment when she was in 7th grade to address attention, concentration, and behavioral problems in school. This is normal. They're going back to figure out all of the issues she's ever had to help support her specific plea. At the time, she was medicated to address symptoms presumed to stem from either ADD or ADHD. Her attorney said she was later prescribed a mood stabilizer, an antidepressant, and an antipsychotic until age 18 when she weaned herself off medications. Let me say that again.
That's always a good idea.
She weaned herself off medication.
Would you commit surgery on yourself, ma'am? I don't think so. So you probably shouldn't be handling your own medication titrating either.
I have dug a sliver out of my
close.
Before.
That's true. Me too.
And I had a plantar's wart, and I had to treat it.
Yeah, yeah. You are practically taking your own health care into your
realistically. I think I could do my own appendectomy if necessary.
So, obviously.
Shabusiness, through her attorney, said she was hospitalized after a suicide attempt in April and May of 2021.
So this is prior to...
a year before.
Okay.
At which point she was diagnosed with PTSD and bipolar disorder, adding to her past diagnoses of severe depression, ADHD, and ADD. Okay.
It just sounds to me like that's a lot of diagnoses, excuse me. That's interesting to me.
And perhaps we're going to get into some of the PTSD piece, the bipolar. I mean, it takes an actual doctor to make that diagnosis. But this is the year before this crime occurs, and she is relatively heavy into the use of narcotics at this point.
Okay, right.
On February 14th of 2023, okay, she's waiting for trial.
Yeah.
Shabusiness attacks her attorney, Jolly, after he requested the trial date to be pushed back so experts could determine her competency to stand trial.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Now, clearly,
okay,
she is not using drugs. Presumably, they don't give you those in jail.
Right. And she still was violent.
She attacks her attorney.
The person who is supposed to defend her in court.
So she then is tackled by a Brown County Sheriff's officer, and no one, just so you know, is seriously injured. Neither the attorney or her. Maybe his pride.
Yeah.
Around...
He definitely is not real happy right now.
No, because around 10 minutes after he was attacked, he tells Judge Walsh that he plans to file a motion to be removed from the case.
Rightfully so.
He was replaced by Christopher Freilich on March 3rd, who requested that Walsh recuse himself, the judge, as he witnessed the attack, and it could affect his ruling.
Okay.
No.
Okay. They did not do it?
Walsh declines.
Sure.
Why would he?
I know.
Now listen, I want you to...
I can see why, as a defense attorney, he'd ask. I can.
If we had to recuse ourselves every time a person acted badly in front of us, there would never be a hearing.
Right.
Can you imagine setting the precedent that as long as I, as a defendant, act like a complete fucking jackhole, this judge will have to recuse themselves?
Right. I know.
No, it's not. That's not how it works.
You're right.
Okay.
And rightfully so.
And Judge Walsh was correct, too.
Of
I mean,
course.
no one was going to make him recuse himself.
But I can see why the defense attorney was like, I think I could get a loophole here.
I'm going to tell you this much. Whether we like anything this guy does or not, this new attorney here, he's good.
Okay.
Yeah. So this new lawyer who represents Shabusiness, he files a motion asking that his client's bail. By the way, I didn't tell you this. It was set at $2 million.
Okay.
Cash.
Oh.
He asked that it be reduced to somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million. Like she could post that.
I'm going to say probably not, but okay.
Now, her current attorney also filed a motion to exclude evidence of searches Shabusiness made before the murder. Searches on her computer, on her search engine.
What?
Including, here are some of the things she searched that they found and wanted to get in. She searched Jeffrey Dahmer walking into court all sexy.
What the fuck?
She also searched Jeffrey Dahmer's butt.
No. Why? What?
So she legit, Charnell, was looking up these things about Jeffrey Dahmer.
Prior to the murder.
Yes. Yes.
When you said last week that this case gets weirder, you weren't playing.
Well, how much of this had she not planned?
Holy crap.
So Judge Walsh rules that the evidence can be admitted in court. Okay. And I'll talk to you about some of the evidence, but no mention should be made of her searches for Satanism.
Okay. Oh, gosh.
I left that part out. So she makes some searches. Satanism, Jeffrey Dahmer walking into court all sexy, like this is a sexual thing, and Jeffrey Dahmer's butt. And I think he's allowing those things in because there are specific sexual allegations regarding the homicide that he's bringing up. Yes. She did, however, at some point search Satanism, and he did exclude that.
And can we just designate the difference? I talk about this a lot when Satanism comes up in cases. This is truly what the twisted, perverted version of Satanism has become, not the actual original and different. There is a different practicing Satanism that has nothing to do with our Christian version of Satan or anything like that. I just, as someone who has studied world's religions, I feel that we need to make sure that we are distinguishing that this is the twisted, perverted version of Satanism.
I don't know the specific reasons that he chose to exclude it, but clearly he didn't believe that it was relevant, and perhaps some of the things you're stating are reasons to do that, so you don't have any confusion come up.
Okay.
This is not a case of satanic panic, okay?
Yeah, right.
There is no evidence that this was done as some type of a ritualistic killing.
She had no altar, anything like that.
No.
Yeah.
But the other things are going to be allowed in because they are, I believe, relevant to, or at least lend some concern regarding their premeditation potentially. Mm-hmm. So attorneys for Shabusiness, and they sought to have her statements at the time of her arrest thrown out. So everything that she said, about the admissions or not denying, arguing that she was under the influence of drugs. In June, the judge denies a defense motion also to drop the sexual assault charge. So the defense moved prior to trial 2 things. They wanted her statements thrown out at the time of her arrest.
What?
This is a very normal thing to ask that those be thrown out. You don't want them to come in. And also they're asking for the sexual assault charge to be dismissed because their argument is the victim was dead and his penis had been dismembered.
Oh my God. Yep. What?
Okay. Just go ahead and process.
Okay.
Prior to trial, a judge approved a second competency hearing for Shabusiness after her defense argued that the initial eval completed in November of 2022 was no longer current. Her defense claimed she, quote unquote, may have been suffering from a mental breakdown or other mental defect before and after the alleged incident on February 23rd of 2022.
Can I make a statement about the dismemberment and the wanting the sexual assault to be dropped because of it? Just let's say that it had been dismembered and then she decided to do the graphic things that she described to the police officer after the dismemberment. because it's no longer attached to the victim's body, it's no longer considered assault. That still belonged to him, and he did not consent to having it detached or otherwise.
I think that the legal argument that could be made that the defense attorney was making had more to do with the fact that the victim was dead. And I don't know that I know how Michigan statute looks for criminal sexual conduct, but for these, what they would consider their CSC, or what were they calling it? Something sexual assault. I don't know that that requires
The person to
the
be
person
living.
to be living. It simply requires consent. You can't consent if you're dead.
No.
You can't consent if you're incapacitated. You can't consent
Right.
if you're mentally impaired. You can't consent if you're a child.
Right.
So they didn't drop the sexual assault charge.
Good.
But I understand why the defense attorney was making that argument.
Was trying to argue it. Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
And there may be a big split here amongst the legal professionals that listen as to whether or not maybe that should have been thrown out because he was already dead. Now, he didn't want to die.
Right, exactly. He didn't consent to being murdered.
But he also, can you speculate that he wouldn't have consented to his penis being dismembered? I was going to
Right.
say decapitated.
Well,
Dismembered.
yeah.
I'm pretty sure that wasn't part of their normal sex act.
No, well, clearly not.
And I don't think that if he did, on prior occasions, no offense, I do not mean to offend anybody, submit to some consensual sodomy. She had that
Right.
sex toy item.
Right.
He couldn't consent at the time that she was placing it in his orifice because he wasn't able to consent.
Right.
He
Exactly.
was
He's
either
no longer living.
He was either dead. I don't believe that he had not been decapitated at that point.
Right.
And I think that it's a pretty strong argument in terms of when his penis might have been dismembered, because I don't think that she dismembered his penis and then utilized it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that
Right.
she performed fellatio on him post-mortem, I believe that was probably still attached to his
Right.
body, and then she was cutting things off later. And maybe I'm missing the piece where she dismembered the penis in order to use it for sexual purposes. And if so, I wish there was more charges they could tack on.
Well, right. Exactly.
So
So were they just trying to get the sexual charges dropped and then leave it at like mutilation of a corpse?
yes,
Essentially.
they
Okay.
concurred that there was enough probable cause for there to be a mutilation of a corpse.
Clearly.
They believed in their argument was that the sexual stuff that happened was also simply mutilation of a corpse.
Okay.
Because
they wanted
sex-
all that lumped in because he was no longer living.
I think it's just almost naive that there are people out there, attorneys out there, that think that there are only people that have sex with living people.
Yeah.
But
I
when
agree.
you've covered when you've covered as many cases as we have, we know that necrophilia is a real thing, and there are people who are aroused by dead things,
Yes.
and not just people.
For sure.
So on July 13th, a judge hears testimony from forensic psychologist Dr. Diane Lighton. She testifies that Shabiznes showed signs of an active psychotic disorder and was not competent for trial. Before jury selection was scheduled on July 21, court-ordered psychologist Dr. Matthew Seipel testified that Shabiznes was competent to stand trial.
Okay.
The judge ultimately found, and this happens, we are the ultimate deciders of competency between the two reports, that the defendant is competent, and proceeded with jury selection.
Okay.
Over the course of the 3-day trial, the jurors will hear, and I'm going to go through this by each day, but I'm going to tell you now that the jurors will hear about her online searches for Jeffrey Dahmer walking in a court all sexy, as well as how she allegedly preserved Tyrion's blood and then showered with it before recounting to detectives how much she liked strangling him,
Oh my gosh.
and that this sexually aroused her. 11 days before she killed Tyrion, Shabiznes had also taken a bizarre selfie next to a cell phone with an image of the cannibal serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer from her home state of Wisconsin.
Really?
There is a photograph of her that you can find, and she is holding basically a picture that she brought up of him on another phone or device.
Whoops.
Of her posing with Dahmer.
So she has a boner for Dahmer, obviously.
And this is a few days, this is 11 days before she ends up killing Shad.
No, I hate this.
Day 1, July 24th of 2023.
Okay.
Just last year.
Yep.
Judge Thomas Walsh explained to the jury that the defendant has entered 2 pleas, not guilty and not guilty by reason of mental disease or defect. Furthermore, he explained that in this initial phase of the trial, the jurors are to only consider the defendant's guilt and not if she was suffering from mental disease or defect during the incident. That is a separate hearing. Assistant DA Caleb Saunders says the defendant made a series of choices that led to the death of her friend from high school, Shad Thyrion. So this is his opening. He's talking about how it started with her use of meth with Shad, followed by her decision to intentionally strangle him to death with a dog collar in his mother's basement, degrade his body with sex acts on his corpse, dismember his body, scrub the crime scene clean, and hide his remains in her car and throughout his mother's basement, telling law enforcement they would, quote unquote, have fun trying to find him. Defense lawyer Christopher Freilich urged the jury to keep an open mind and not jump to conclusions about the defendant's guilt until they heard all the evidence. And that's normal.
It is. He's doing his job.
I give a jury instruction that says almost the same thing. And I do it every time with a straight face. The jury heard the police call in, which the victim's mother, the jury heard the police call in which his mother, Tara Pekinich, and her boyfriend, Steve Hendricks, report the discovery of Shad's head in the bucket.
They listened to the 911 call.
And it is there.
Oh.
I'm not playing it.
No, please don't. That poor mother.
The operator asks the mom if she's hallucinating.
Oh.
The jury sees...
She fucking wishes she were.
I so wish I was.
Oh.
The jury sees graphic photos. This is still all on day 1 of the trial. Sees graphic photos and videos of items found in the victim's mother's basement and the defendant's car, including the victim's head in the bucket, bags.
The jury had to see that?
All of it.
Oh, the jury members. Oh, I'm
Bags,
so sorry.
containers filled with the body parts. They also saw photographs that were taken of multiple sex toys that were used, dog collar chains, and bloody knives.
Okay.
This concludes day 1 trial. Day 2.
Oh my God, that's just day 1.
And they do things a lot like we do here. It's not California where these things are drawn out right over. This was literally all day long on day 1, and day 2 is the next day on July 25th.
Okay.
You show back up at 8:30 in the morning and you get right back into it.
Yeah.
Dr. Vincent Tranchita of the Dane County Medical Examiner's Office testified that Thyrion, huge trigger alert, guys, this whole day 2, was decapitated, his back filleted,
Oh my God.
and then dismembered. He also said the body showed multiple wounds and evidence of attempts to remove the victim's flesh from his bones.
So she played not only, like, she wasn't just dismembering him for easier transport to get rid of the body. She actually played with dismemberment as well.
I don't know if she was playing with him or if she was trying to figure out how to get the flesh off of his bones to dispose of him.
Ugh.
Diagrams of his body and head. So they did show diagrams to the jury, okay? And those diagrams exist also if anybody would like to see them. Showed the extent of the wounds and injuries that he suffered, much of which occurred after he had died of strangulation. The dismemberment of the victim's body, according to the doctor, would have taken hours, noting that his torso had been cut in half.
Okay.
Dr.
Good gracious.
Tranchita also testified in court about the lack of blood on the scene of the murder. Dr. Tranchita said, we have decapitation, we have dismemberment, we have transection of the torso. Subsequently, internally, the body has been eviscerated. So just the how it was cut out of there, emptied of organs. In other words, we have entered inside the body through various cuts through the abdomen and between the ribs where the victim's organs have been removed, largely one by one.
Oh my gosh.
Shabusiness, girl, if you want to watch what either possibly crazy, but criminally crazy, and like just Satan looks like during a trial, watch some of this. Watch her facial expressions when there's testimony. She displays this large range of emotions throughout the day at the defense table and seems to even at one point take a little nap when the lights dim in the courtroom.
Wow.
She allegedly had told investigators that she and Thyrion ended up back at his home after doing drugs earlier in the day, including meth. Again, she referred to that as the bitch. Mm-hmm. The medical examiner said in court on Tuesday that Thyrion had, I'm going to call him Shad. I want to call him Shad because I feel so bad for this boy, had traces of meth, cocaine, and marijuana in his system at the time of his death.
Okay.
He also noted that none of those substances contributed to his death.
Mm-hmm.
That's important.
Right. It is very important.
On this day, Taylor Schabusiness, you can watch her kind of smirking and making weird facial expressions. These are my observations. And at one point outside the jury, when the judge is talking with the attorneys, so here's what happens. The judge sends the jurors out because they're starting to talk about the effects of meth on the brain and potential long-term effects and like crazy stuff, right?
Yeah.
I think they're trying to decide what they're going to let in, if he's going to allow a lot of this information in that would possibly cause people to believe that voluntary intoxication of substances is allowed and all of the effects. I mean, it can go on and on. Here's the point, though, that I'm trying to make. At some point, she kind of makes like a 2-finger gun. See this right here? Where I have my 2 fingers and shakes it at the judge.
What?
Uh-huh. Yep. She has some type of this weird interaction where they're talking and then she just kind of goes and shakes it by her head. And it's subtle. It's not maybe even as much as I'm doing. She just kind of goes like just a couple shakes with her 2 fingers together and her thumb up. A 2-finger gun shake, I call it. Oh, and at some point on a 10-minute break, she does a wardrobe change and changes her dress on day 2.
What?
Like she's held off and she comes back in a completely different dress.
Oh my gosh.
What
is going through this woman's mind?
You need to watch her. Watch this woman. It's why the court TV footage, it's why I'm highly recommending you follow if anybody's interested in this the testimony and the actual events from the trial. Highly recommend court TV for this.
Wow.
Body cam footage that day, in my opinion, also showed police arriving to arrest a quite calm Taylor.
Yeah.
She still has blood on her hands in the video. You can watch the whole video of her coming outside, being talked to on the body cam, being seated onto there's like an outside stairwell in an apartment complex. She's cuffed. She's clearly answering questions and articulated at that point in time that no one in the home had any weapons. They ask her and she's very clear. They know that her roommate's in there. And she's like, no, nobody has any weapons inside the house. That concludes day 2 testimony.
Wow.
Day 3, July 26th. It's like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Mm-hmm. Green Bay detective Kevin Kemp describes interviewing Taylor Schabusiness after her arrest. Now, it's important to note, listening to him and then going back and watching her interview, she's calm, clear, coherent, and matter of fact concerning her confession. And she gives very specific information. Why is this important? Why am I noting it? They're trying to say that she was under the influence of meth and maybe not giving a valid, a cohesive statement, right? Okay. Like she wasn't competent to give that statement.
Right.
During the trial, David Graff, he is the Green Bay detective, said the 25-year-old began choking Shad in an act of foreplay, and then she apparently wanted to see how far she can go. She described how she had sexual contact with the body in terms of playing with his penis, he said, and went on to recount various abuses to which Schabusiness subjected Shad's corpse to. He also said that following his death, quote unquote, she had also cuddled the body, saying she liked it. So she's talking about cuddling it and liking it. And that is immediately preceding where she tells officers she enjoyed killing Shad and made comments to the detective asking if they knew what it was like to love something so much that you killed it. So the jurors heard it.
She is 100% a necrophiliac. She is.
She's a psycho.
Well, absolutely. But this is... Oh,
but it's one of those things where is she a necro in general? Like, would she even psychologically be considered that? Or is it just him? It's like she wanted to absorb him. Like,
I truly think had she not been caught this first time, she would have continued to do that.
You think she would have done this again?
Yes. I think this really
was her.
This may have been her first time, and I'm sure that it was, but now she's reached that level of pleasure in her brain, right? That level of connectivity of her pleasure principle in her brain has now went to this point. And we know those searches that were going on ahead of time.
Oh, we do.
Those were sexual searches.
She's looking up Dahmer, and she thinks
sexy.
he is fine.
Right. Dahmer looking sexy. Dahmer's ass. Like things like that. Sexually motivated type of searches. So I do think that she would have continued had she not been caught.
Once in custody, Detective Kemp testified that he informed Shabusiness of her Miranda rights. This is important. After which she willingly submits to the interrogation. This is the one they're trying to fight.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to ask. I'm like, didn't she was read her rights, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
She was read her rights. He testified that she did not request a lawyer at any point while being questioned. So she is Mirandized, she submits, and she never changes her mind or brings up the request for an attorney at any point in time. And if you watch the video, this does not appear to be a woman who is stressed out, coerced, forced in any way to give a testimony. An interrogation is what it was. But it really wasn't much of an interrogation. It was more of an interview. There was an interrogation can use tactics that more sensitive people might look at and say, oh, that's why they confessed. Their interrogations aren't pretty.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Interviews are more lovely. They follow a nice calm pattern. And this was very calm.
Yeah.
She was able to sit in a chair, talk to us, collect her thoughts, repeat, and be able to clearly tell us things that matched what we later found on the scene, Detective Kemp said on that.
So for someone who
trial.
blacked out, she sure does remember a lot.
She has a ton of beautiful detail. According to the criminal complaint that was filed, she allegedly admitted to killing Shad during that interrogation. She also told detectives that she sexually abused his corpse and that she dismembered his body with a bread knife. Closing arguments.
His mother's bread knife, by the way.
Yes, his mom's.
Ugh.
Closing arguments were given on day 3. Brown County District Attorney David Lassie said in his closing remarks, "This is bizarre. This is strange. This is unnatural, but in no way is it unclear."
Yeah.
And the other assistant district attorney assisting, Caleb Saunders, both of whom signed the original PC to get the charge, added, "There is one truth in this case, what the defendant did to Shad Thyrion."
Yeah.
She literally gives the whole story, and it is all corroborated down to the detail of where police would find the dildo that she anally raped Thyrion with.
Yeah.
This is his closing. He says she dismembered Shad because she was trying to cover up her crime. She didn't panic after a meth-fueled evening and wake up and call the police and ask for help. She made a conscious decision that she wanted to cover up her crimes and she couldn't carry his body out whole.
Right. Agreed. Also, she's said about good luck finding all the organs because I took them out. I'm just thinking, like being in his mom's shoes, what if she was like, had hid some in other deeper parts of their basement? I would have to have someone come through and just upheave everything in my house.
Oh, I wouldn't be living there.
Oh, no, obviously not. But I'm saying,
but some people don't have that choice.
Right. But,
and they have to stay
there.
there.
Megan.
Taylor Shabusiness exercised her right not to testify, and her attorney actually asked the judge to confirm with her that she was not being pressured. This is just good. He didn't want it to come up as potentially, I think, an ineffective assistance of counsel. Like I wanted to testify, and they wouldn't let me.
And he wouldn't let me. Yep.
Both sides then presented those closing arguments. I read you that very brief excerpt after the state and defense rested. The 12-person jury deliberated that same day for less than 1 hour.
Yeah.
Before finding her guilty on all charges.
Okay. Yep.
Day 4 of the trial is July 27th. So a few days later, probably over the long weekend, right? This is the part of the trial where they do their sentencing. Okay. So it's a continuation of the trial, but it's not anything necessarily that the jury has to decide in terms of guilt or guilt or not guilty. I almost use my least favorite terminology when talking about a criminal case. There's no such thing as innocence.
Right.
It's guilty or not guilty. Taylor Shabusiness's father testifies on her behalf on July 27th. Entering the courtroom in leg and wrist shackles and an orange jail jumpsuit.
Oh,
Oh, are you ready for some tea?
Yes, give me the tea.
Told you this case does not get any less crazy.
He probably wasn't just being ironic in his outfit choice, was he?
We're going to get to all of this.
Wow.
First, let's talk about what he testified to on that day. He testified that he sought help for his daughter on several occasions because she had suffered from hallucinations and wasn't in her right mind. And he said that he was always worried about her mental health. A defense psychologist comes in as well on that date and opines that Shabiznes was not criminally responsible for her actions because she suffered from severe bipolar disorder that rendered her unable to appreciate the wrongfulness of her actions and deprived her of volitional control. Now, the reason that it's important that this is brought up here, Charnell, is because the judge has already established that she is competent. So she stood trial and she got found guilty. Well, this is in a sentencing phase, and they're bringing up the criminal responsibility piece. They're doing this because they're trying to get, some pity here for a sentence.
Right.
2 court-appointed psychologists who testified for the state said Shabiznes's actions were fueled by drugs, which made her ineligible for the not guilty by reason of insanity plea under Wisconsin's definition of a mental disease or defect.
Okay.
They pointed to her decision to dismember Thyrion's body and clean the basement crime scene as evidence that she knew her actions were wrong.
Right.
Shabiznes's attorney argued that drugs may have compounded her psychosis, but there was enough evidence that she suffered from a long-standing disorder affecting her actions going back to adolescence.
So prior to drug use.
The 12-person jury, again, deliberates for an hour before unanimously agreeing that Shabiznes was not suffering from mental disease or defect that impacted her ability to know right from wrong or to act within the bounds of the law.
Yep.
Note, at this phase of the trial in Wisconsin, only 10 of the 12 would have had to have agreed.
Yeah.
For
But
the
all
sentencing piece.
12 did.
And let me repeat, unanimously
Yes.
agreed. A forensic psychologist, Diane Lighton, testified that Shabiznes told her she, quote unquote, had a thing with Jeffrey Dahmer a year ago. Although Dahmer was murdered in prison by a fellow inmate in 1994.
Right.
She has having this thing with him with her own thing. Okay.
Yeah. She has fantasies.
She's looking him up.
Yes.
Yes. She has engaged in some type of and again, you guys are going to say, well, my God, she is crazy. She was crazy. Yeah, she's fucking crazy. It doesn't, you can be crazy and still be criminally responsible and competent as to what you're doing.
And clearly she was, because she tried to hide it after the fact.
A jury had convicted her then of the first-degree intentional homicide, mutilation of a corpse, and third-degree sexual assault. On September 26th, so roughly 2 months, that's not bad, an 8-week sentencing time frame, Judge Walsh sentences Taylor Shabiznes to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole.
Okay.
Walsh said he had to protect the public from her.
Yeah.
This crime offends human decency. It offends human dignity. It offends the human community. It really does, he said.
Yeah.
Shad Thyrion's father forgave Shabiznes, saying, I believe everyone makes bad choices, but not to this scale. It does no good to hate you. I know you do have a heart. You have a mind.
Oh, wow.
Shabiznes is serving out her sentence at the Tichita Correctional Institution, a facility housing only female inmates that is located in the city of Fond du Lac.
That's
Now,
a cool name. Fond du Lac.
Fond du Lac is beautiful. Let's talk about before she came Taylor Shabiznes. Who was Taylor?
Yeah. Let's, because I really want to know. Let me pull up my teacup and some crumpets.
In November of 1997, Marla and Arturo Coronado welcomed a daughter, Taylor Denise Coronado. When she was just 11, Shabiznes lost her mother, according to testimony that Arturo gave in court the previous week. So this is about a week after that we find out some things. Apparently, she had attempted suicide in 7th grade by holding a knife to her own throat. Her father also noted that she lost her only sibling when her brother, who was called AJ, was in a motorcycle crash. He died at the age of 22, and that had occurred just the prior year.
Okay.
After the death of her mother, her dad had actually remarried. So that was back when she was 11. That marriage fell apart, however, after her father was accused of raping a minor in his care.
Okay.
Coronado, daddy, who testified for his daughter, is now serving, or was at the time, I mean, it's only about a year since then, September to now, 13 months.
Yep.
At the time, he was serving a 12-year sentence for second-degree sexual assault of a child, according to Brown County. He was sentenced a week before his daughter, after having been pled no contest. So he admitted guilt by pleading no contest to same. Happens a lot in criminal sexual conduct cases and because of civil liability. Second-degree sexual assault of a child in Wisconsin is classified as any type of sexual contact or intercourse with a person who has not yet attained the age of 16.
Okay.
The alleged victim in this case was only 13 when she claimed that Mr. Coronado raped her in her bedroom. That complaint initially charged Mr. Coronado with 2 counts of first-degree sexual assault with a person under 16 by use of force or violence, but the district attorney made the decision to reduce the charges to 2 counts of second-degree CSC for reasons that are not explained in the docket. That is a statement made, I believe, from Inside Edition Digital. I can tell you that when they say the reason they're not explained on the docket, they do plea offers all the time. In this particular situation, whether you like it or not, whether it's right or wrong, they will often offer a lesser offense to spare the 13-year-old child
from having to testify. Yep.
We don't have to like it, you guys, but that's the reality of
it. It stops the
And as a prosecutor,
trauma.
I was one, and I see them every day come in. You get what you get for victims and survivors. You are sometimes dealing with people who are highly, terribly traumatized, who are not going to be able to make it, and who a jury is going to hate. A jury is not going to convict this guy, so you do what you have to do, and you don't have to love it.
And you also are reducing re-traumatization on the victim as well.
Well, that's the nice way to say it.
Yeah.
In his deal with the prosecutors, he agreed to a no contest plea to one of the 2 counts, and the second count was read into the record but dismissed according to the court docket. Typical. It also shows that he filed a notice with the court earlier right after Taylor was also convicted that he intended to pursue post-conviction relief. He's going to appeal.
Okay.
He was briefly represented, get this, by Quinn Jolly in those
I was just going to say, by Mr. Jolly?
The same lawyer his daughter attacked in court back in February before she got her new one.
You know, this guy sits around having some beers with his friends, and they're like, oh, I can tell you all about that family.
The victim was a relative. His victim was a relative of his then wife, who did file for divorce just a few weeks later. Her lawyer for those divorce proceedings was Christopher Freilich, the same lawyer who defended Shabusiness.
Yep.
This is small town, you guys. This is like my county. This is what happens. Taylor had married her husband, Warren Shabow, Schabow.
Okay.
Shabow. On Valentine's Day in 2020. And he had stood by her during the trial.
Wow.
This Shabusiness name is basically a made up and changed legal name. Both would take on this name, changing his from Chabot and hers from Coronado to Shabusiness, because they were, quote unquote, and this is some stuff taken from some of their Facebook posts to each other, going to start an empire together.
Oh, God.
Maybe drugs, Charnell. Who knows?
Right. Wow.
The pair,
Shabusiness,
Warren and Taylor, are parents to a toddler son.
No shit.
Who is living with his grandparents in Texas, according to Shabusiness's attorney. He did share that information at a court hearing earlier this year, I believe.
Wow.
Warren, whose legal surname is Shabo, is serving time after being convicted of federal drug charges.
Wow, I'm shocked. That is just such shocking news.
So according to the probable cause affidavit that was filed in that case, he had, quote unquote, conspired with others to distribute and possess with intent to distribute a mixture and substance containing in excess of 500 grams of a mixture of substance containing a detectable, a detectable amount of methamphetamine. He was distributing meth.
Yep, sure was.
That conviction came after Warren agreed to a deal in which he entered a guilty plea to the charge that he knowingly and intentionally possessed with intent to distribute a mixture containing meth. Okay. The charges stemmed from a traffic stop on November 13th of 2020. So she has been alone for quite a bit of time while he's been in jail.
Because they got married Valentine's Day 2020.
Yes. And then in November, on November 13th, he gets pulled over by the Ashwaubenon police department discovering 46 grams of meth.
Wow.
That will allegedly belong to him. Okay. That's a lot of meth.
That's a lot.
So he's serving his sentence at FCI Oxford, a medium security facility in Wisconsin, with federal records showing a release date for July 25th, 2024, this year, just this past summer.
So he was released?
He wasn't during the trial.
Okay.
He was released after.
Right.
So this trial all happened last year.
Yeah, right.
She's been
but
sitting for about a year.
Because it's after July. So okay.
I didn't look to see if he actually was released, but I have no reason not to believe it because with a Fed record, when they have a release date on it, it's not a parole date. It's the actual release date.
Yeah, exactly.
In a Facebook post from earlier this year, Chabot wrote that he was framed and that he beat a conspiracy to distribute meth charge and pled to the possession with intent to deliver because it was the best deal. So he's saying he got charged with conspiracy. He ended up pleading to a PWID, as I call him, because he just wanted to take a deal. But really, he was framed and he didn't do anything. Mm-hmm. He also noted in that post that he would be out by January of next year, if not sooner, because of the First Step Act. This is a bipartisan bill passed by Congress in 2018, which allows inmates to earn increased good conduct time.
Oh, okay.
And you then can use your time credit for completion of recidivism reduction programs or any other productive type activities in prison. And it also expands opportunities for inmate placement in residential reentry centers or home confinement.
Okay.
They're just trying to empty the prisons out.
Yep.
He also posted a letter in November of last year claiming that his wife is not to blame for the murder of Shad, but rather the drugs he alleges were given to her that day.
Okay. Wow.
In a post a few months later, shared just after Shabiznes attacked her attorney in court, Chabot wrote, "I know what she's being accused of is not who she is. Not only has her addiction played a big role, but so does her mental background, as well as postpartum depression. I just want my wife to get help, professional help, because it's what she deserves. Like I said, my prayers go out to my wife. I love her more than anything in this world, and this will never change no matter what."
Okay.
So Shabiznes, I'm going to tell you more. Her legal troubles began after she met her husband. So I'm glad he's standing by her because she didn't actually accumulate her first felony arrest until June 21st of 2020.
Wow.
So they married in February.
Yeah,
this happens in June. He gets picked up in November.
Oh, boy.
On that day, and this is what she's on. I think this is what she's on bond for. No, that's the second one. I apologize. On this day, Officer Mackenzie Teskey responds to a request for a welfare check on a female that just knocked on a man's door and seemed to be under the influence of narcotics. This interview, I'm just going to tell you now, was also obtained by Inside Edition Digital. The complaint alleged that when the police officer approached Shabiznes, she said, "Why do I have to stop for you?" Officer Teskey then walked up to Taylor and asked her what was going on. And this is when she states, "I'm not sure. I'm on a different planet right now." Taylor then shows this officer that she'd shot up earlier in the day by showing her evidence of the fresh track marks on her arms. When another officer arrives, this is when things allegedly take a turn. And this is crazy, okay? We know that meth... Mm-hmm. She doesn't react well when she's taking methamphetamine.
Clearly not.
I mean, she's going to murder somebody on it.
Right.
And I know that people are going to have strong feelings then about her reactions when she's not on meth.
Right.
She started to get argumentative with officers and started to walk away. One of the officers stops Taylor from walking away because she starts to walk into oncoming traffic. Mm-hmm. And then while Officer Teskey is trying to index her through Brown County teletype, she continues to make strange comments that don't make sense. And at one point looks at the officer and says, "Are you taking a shit?" Taylor continues to make absurd comments and is acting strange during this entire interaction.
Because in her mind, she's seeing all that. She's so freaking high off her gourd. She is seeing this officer just taking a shit.
The officer says in the complaint that he again stopped her from walking into traffic, and that is when he claims she starts kicking him. When the other officer comes in to assist, she also attempts to kick him, and then she gets charged with resisting arrest and battery on a member of law enforcement. Mm-hmm. She enters a no contest plea to the battery charge and gets put on probation for 3 years.
Okay.
While also being ordered to undergo a psych eval. Her next brush with the law, though, so she is on probation for that original crime at the time that she commits the murder, but she also had another brush with the law where 2 months after, she allegedly leads Officer Cameron Boersma on a high-speed chase after he attempts to pull her over. The complaint alleges that after attempting to pull over a speeding car, the driver accelerates while running red lights and at one point almost hits a biker.
Oh, no.
After a few minutes, cops decided to try a pit maneuver on her, claiming in the complaint that the driver of the car was still continuing their driving behavior, high rate of speed, swerving all over lanes, and not caring for any other drivers except for themselves. The officers then stated that they were able to avoid a pit maneuver, and she ends up in a parking lot and of the complex where her father lives. They managed to grab her when she exits the car, and then they search the vehicle. Okay. In the front passenger's compartment, which she would have control of within reach. We're putting this out there because you have to show, right, that there's probable cause here. There's a black kit. This kit contained a syringe that had a crystal-like substance still on the plunger end, as well as portions of the plunger itself. Officer Boersma also observed a little baggie that contained a crystal-like substance that subsequently tested positive for meth. Officer Boersma also located an off-white rubber elastic band commonly used as a tourniquet for IV drug use, as well as a clear bag containing multiple small little cotton balls, which from the training and experience of that officer are used as microfilters for persons that use drugs intravenously.
Yep.
This offense resulted in charges of knowingly fleeing or eluding an officer, bail jumping for not adhering to the guidelines of her probation from previous offenses in June, possession of drug paraphernalia, and obstructing an officer. In a deal with prosecutors, she agreed to enter a no contest plea to the charge of fleeing and obstructing, and in January of 2022, she received 2 years of probation for eluding police and 3 months in a local jail for bail jumping.
And that's when she got the tether put on her.
But the local jail sentence got reduced to house arrest. And 1 month later, Shabusiness murdered Shad Thyrion.
Wow. Dang, she really escalated in her criminality.
Yep. So when she was 25 then is when she received her life sentence in prison. She received life in prison without parole in that murder of Shad, who was 24. She was also sentenced to an additional 7.5 years for mutilating a corpse and 3 years for third-degree sexual assault. Christopher Freilich of the Freilich Law Group, who was her attorney, says, "I really feel that this young lady should be given a chance at the possibility, not the probability, of getting out on extended supervision or parole someday after decades of work and therapy and counseling." He indicates that he intends to appeal the court's decision on Shabusiness's behalf. He took up the case in February, again, after Jolly had attacked her, and he takes over.
No, she attacked Jolly.
She attacks Jolly, and then it was removed. I can't believe I said it that way. At one point in time during the trial, Shabusiness actually appeared in a spit hood. Do you know what a spit hood is?
No, please
Literally
explain.
This like hood that they put over a person who is in custody, and you can kind of like see their face, but you can't, like, from the mouth down. It is literally to prevent you from spitting on people.
Oh my gosh. How do I not know that this is a real thing?
Oh yeah, they have spit hoods. Oh yeah. It was not to protect court attendees, they said, when she came back. It was to obscure her facial expressions.
Oh my God.
Now that's what he's saying. That, okay, this is speculation.
Yeah.
But Freilich, her attorney, did say that there had been some issues at the jail earlier.
Probably where she was spitting.
Remember that this convicted murderer has smiled, smirked, and appeared to fall asleep in court. These are all behaviors that the defense is now going to use to state that it was indicative of her actual mental incompetence to stand trial.
No, she's just a dick. That's all.
Leighton explains, Dr. Leighton, that, and this is the defense expert, who she's the one who said before she thinks Taylor is incompetent, that she's been described as smirky, weird grinning when she's talking about these crimes, and that based on her experience and training, that is a psychotic person. Shabusiness would burst into laughter when it was discussed whether jurors would be shown photos of her former lover's decapitated head.
Oh, my Lord.
She also laughed when the jury rejected her insanity plea and handed down her conviction on the 27th.
Listen, I know we want to call this insane because it's hard for rational people to think about that. But sometimes you're just an asshole.
Well, I'm going through these because I'm just so you guys know, these are the things that they're going to bring up on appeal.
For sure.
Here's the next. You've heard this one before, so let's dive into that briefly. Freilich said that he'd made several attempts to get a mistrial. Should a judge be on a case if they witnessed a fight in the courtroom? Freilich asked.
Oh my God.
Also, I heard she tried to flash the judge in court. Would that be another reason to get someone else, another judicial officer? I have no idea, he says.
Oh my God.
So apparently she's misbehaving and maybe tries to lift up her shirt. She makes that kind of gun type thing. She's comes in again with a spit hood. She's really misbehaving quite badly.
And so potentially, as you pointed out earlier, she could try to do that for every judge to just continue to deflect.
I just can't see. I mean, is it going to endear somebody to me? No.
Right.
But can I be fair and impartial? Absolutely.
Well,
and I'm not the trier of fact in this case.
Exactly. The jury was.
People misbehave. Defendants misbehave badly in court all the time, in front of jurors even. Mm-hmm. And then he questions the one charge specifically. Again, he is preparing, I'm sure, an appeal on this. How could there be a sexual assault? He's dead. Once he's dead, it's not sexual assault. It's just mutilation of a corpse. Did the jury just go along with it because if she's guilty of one, she's probably guilty of all three? I don't know the answer to that either. Despite the Brown County's judge's view that she had committed crimes that offended human decency, again, there were people in the courtroom. I talked to you about the victim's father, and I just want to tell you again that Mr. Thyrion's father, Michael, said, "It does no good to hate you. I believe everyone does make bad choices, but not to this scale." Some of her relatives traveled 10 hours multiple times to testify on her behalf and were dejected. They felt dejected after the sentencing, although they, quote unquote, knew the stakes and what they were up against.
Yeah, that's on you. I mean, really.
Her dad, remember, who had just finished, was serving some time recently, says, this just shows that she's not a throwaway. She's not a waste. We should give her a chance. And so the attorney says, that's what I'm trying to do with this potential for appeal.
Give her a chance to do this again to somebody else because this is a part of her pleasure principles in her brain.
They seem to think, Charnell, that this, in fact, is not something that she would do again.
Oh, okay. Because she'll probably never relapse if she were to be out and use meth again.
He did describe some photos that were submitted into evidence that at the sentencing part of her trial, showing that Shabiznes, what she looked like as a mom, as a daughter before her addiction took hold. It said, unlike dozens of gruesome autopsy and crime scene photos that left Freilich lastingly disturbed, these show who she really is, not this monster person. Mm-hmm. You can see what kind of person she was as a little kid, a teenager, and a young lady kissing her baby, holding her brother as a kid.
Sure. Of course, because she is, allegedly human. And I get that.
And as they're going through, they're maneuvering photos. They're like showing pictures for her while she's restrained at her pre-sentence hearing. She's like, can you flip this one? Can you flip this one? It was a happy day for her. I told her I was happy to see her smiling because she deserves to be happy.
What?
One of Shabiznes's lawyers, who's 26 now, has informed the Wisconsin Court of Appeals that he plans to submit a formal appeal then so his client's case can be heard in front of the 3-judge panel for the state's 3rd district. Records show that Shabiznes and her lawyer, this is a Greg Petto or Petat, P-E-T-O-T, Petat, have also started to request transcripts from her pretrial hearings and her initial appearance in Brown County Court. Shabiznes has actually not filed her formal appeal yet, which is expected to be submitted in the next few months. This notice of the appeal comes 9 months after the Wisconsin jury declared her guilty, and I'm just going to tell you again, of first-degree intentional homicide, third-degree sexual abuse, and mutilating of corpse over the horrific, tragic killing of 24-year-old Shad Thyrion. They did deliberate, just so you keep in mind, less than an hour before they came back with their verdict. And the next day came back after less than an hour when they determined and declared a jury of her peers that she was of sound mind when she murdered Shad.
Right.
And that is the crazy story of Taylor Shabiznes. That was, a 5-minute TikTok I saw, and son of a bitch.
Wow. I am disturbed by the "she deserves to be happy" comment.
Oh, and you know what's not in here that I remember reading too? People were referring to her as the Lady Dahmer. of Wisconsin.
God.
And again, you guys, why don't nickname people this
Not
stuff
like that, especially because we know she loved Dahmer. She
Oh my
would have
God.
loved to have been married to him.
She felt like they were in a relationship, according to some of her
she
searches.
was having some fantasies about him. Don't give her that satisfaction.
Yeah.
And also, I'm just disgraced by the way that they're trying to say that she deserves to have a chance at freedom someday because she's not going to reoffend because it was the meth, it was the addiction that made her do this to begin with. That, to me, is an absolute insult to all of the addicts out there who truly want help, who relapse and relapse and relapse because they're hurting themselves. They're not trying to hurt other people. It is a true disease happening in their brain, okay? It's not making them intentionally, murder other people or harm other people or get off sexually on it or anything like that. Like, stop doing that.
She had progressed to a really bad spot, and I'm sure that mental health and trauma have something to do with where she got in conjunction with drug use. Her previous charges actually aren't surprising charges for somebody who is an addict.
No.
I know hundreds, maybe thousands of drug addicts who have accumulated resisting and obstructings and fleeing and eludings and PWIDs and conspiracies and all of these things.
And that's a far cry from murder.
But it's a far cry from murder. It is a far cry from engaging in some consensual sex because you're high on the meth and you like how it feels and you want to do some erotic asphyxiation type activities and to murdering someone in the middle of that act. And then to engaging in the behavior afterward that occurred in this case. And I understand the appellate process and I'm a firm believer in it, but I also think that to respect the criminal justice system, you pick a jury of your peers and they made a decision and then they made another unanimous decision in a case where they didn't have to make a unanimous decision. And I think that it's okay for the defense attorney to question why those decisions were made for an appeal because I want her to have, she deserves her day in court. We are on whether you like it or not, an adversarial system and we do give defendants more rights than other countries do. But Shad Thyrion is just the most sweet, adorable guy who apparently was well loved, at least according to reports, but got himself in a bad bag.
I want to add this too. When you take into account her obsession with Dahmer and her searches and all of those things, and her talking about how much she enjoyed the sexual abuse of his corpse, the cuddling with his corpse afterwards, all of that. This, to me, Megan, even sets it apart from those legitimate cases that we do have where people get high, murder someone, then panic, and try to cover up their tracks, right? And
We've had them.
We have. And then they spend decades, whatever, in jail or in prison, they're rehabilitated and they never reoffend after they've addressed their addiction issues and things like that. These cases do happen, right?
Yeah.
This is not one of those cases.
I mean, it sounds a lot like it when you start to abbreviate it, but when you get into the details of this,
it's not.
It doesn't feel the same.
No, not when you have the necrophilia aspect to it, the obsession with a previous
known serial killer who
yes.
you believe yourself to have been romantically involved with despite his murder in prison decades earlier.
Yes, exactly. So I'm sorry, but for me, that just
2 decades. No, yeah,
1994.
Christ, man, like it's rough.
Yeah.
So
anyway,
all
will
right,
you bathe me? Do you have a bath?
I have pet stories.
Okay, I do love it when we bathe people with doggies and kitties.
Me too. It's a BuzzFeed article, and I'm going to bathe you with puppies and kitties. Maybe. Okay.
Are you cold reading so it could go wayward pretty quickly?
I've read a couple of these, so I know what I'm getting into, but I am going to cold read a couple too.
Okay.
We went away for Christmas in our caravan one year when I was a kid. Money was tight, but my mom was keen to make sure I had a proper Christmas, including a full turkey dinner cooked in our tiny caravan oven.
Aw.
After painstakingly preparing everything, my mom turned around to the plate of turkey only to find our Jack Russell had climbed onto the table. She'd stuck her whole head inside the giant turkey to eat it. Can you picture those?
Picture it?
Jack Russells are jerks.
They are, and they're little.
And they're little.
Their little
probably
butt
fit
is
inside just a tail wagging and a turkey carcass running across the table. Suffice it to say, we stuck to the vegetables that year, and our dog had the best Christmas dinner of her life.
Oh, yeah, sounds like it.
Yep.
Just for the record, y'all, I still would have ate the turkey. I mean, he was only touching the inside. The outside breast, all of that skin, that's all good.
It's your own dog.
It is.
And I think that there's plenty of people out there in the universe who would have been like, I would totally eat that turkey.
I'm still going to eat the turkey.
My cat Merlin was such a good boy and a perfectly litter-trained little angel. That is until a friend came over to stay the weekend. They apparently upset Merlin's daily routine, and he decided to show his dissatisfaction with the situation by doing a magic show in the form of a huge shit on my bed right near my pillow.
Oh, no. Yeah, he was spite pooping.
He spite shit right on your pillow.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
My boyfriend and I took my gorgeous adolescent what?
Who was the famous, wasn't there just a recent famous case of people who...
Johnny Depp and Amber Heard?
Thank you. That's what I was thinking
Man,
of.
to go through that case with a fine-tooth comb. I followed that thing religiously, too, because I just couldn't get enough.
Yes, me too.
I'm like, you guys, this is one of those cases that this legit happens to.
Yes.
And I feel like other people now feel my pain.
Yeah, there was spite shitting in that one.
My boyfriend and I took my gorgeous adolescent ragdoll cat to get neutered after we had a particularly wild party the night before.
Uh-oh.
After we came home with him, we took a nap in the 35-degree heat and awoke to flies buzzing around. In the kitchen, we found that must be Celsius.
Yes.
We found my fluffy little boy lying on the floor, surrounded by a dozen broken eggs, which in a rage he had pushed off the counter to shatter and splat on the tiles before. He lay there purring contentedly, egg yolk dripping from his fur, paying no attention to the hundreds of flies darting around his unmoving body.
Oh, my Lord. They walked in, probably thought that he was dead.
Yes.
Oh.
So my partner used to have this pet hamster. We've been together since we were 15, and I used to sleep over at his place when we were younger. Unfortunately, the hamster turning in its wheel at night sounded like we were doing certain things, and his mom used to scream up the stairs for us to not have sex when she was home.
Oh, my God.
My first cat, these are, how come they always are horrible cats? I have a horrible cat. My first cat
because cats can be dicks
all the time. My first cat was gifted to me when my mom's friend came to visit for Christmas and brought 3 kittens. The run of the litter decided that I was her person. She would climb up my legs and mostly stay hidden unless I was around. As she got older, she would jump on my back and climb up on my shoulder when she wasn't running laps around the house, knocking things over. That was all fine to me, but she had a serious problem if I ever brought girls to the house. She had a chair next to my bed, and she would make sure to pee on any girl who spent the night. Sometimes she would go and pee in the bed beforehand just to mark her territory. My dating life really suffered.
Oh, my God, I bet.
Yep. I think
I'll diabolical and kind of brilliant.
I'm going to read you the last one that I think is necessary for today.
Okay.
Our late dog ate our microwave.
A whole microwave?
We went out for dinner and came home to our microwave with chew marks in it. The cord was gone completely and half of the back was missing. The dog was fine.
Oh, my Lord. Little radioactive, but he was fine. Now when we turn our new microwave on, he starts buzzing and jumping around.
When he's done shitting, he dings.
Oh, Lord. Okay. Well, thank you all so much for joining us today. If you would like to binge more of us, you can join Patreon. The link is in the show notes. We actually have video episodes we've started doing now for our Patreons only. Yeah, gets a little crazy in there, but feel free to go to patreon.com/crime curious. You'll find us. And yeah, if you have brain bath suggestions, send them to crimecurious@yahoo.com with brain bath in the subject line. And until next time, y'all, we hope that you keep it curious
and keep listening.
Bye-bye.